Welcome back. Time to code our download and upload functions. So for now, we coded a bunch of different options such as executing commands, quitting out of the shell, changing directories, clearing the screen, but let's also see how we can create two functions that will allow us to download and upload files on the target machine. So let's start with server first. I'm going to navigate to my tools and to the backdoor directory. Here I will nano our server, and inside of the server down here, we want to code the download function first. So download function will be used to download the files from the target machine. And the reason why I'm saying this is because even though it is obvious, from our server we will be downloading files, but from our backdoor code we will be uploading files. What do I mean by that? Well, since backdoor will be running on the target system, for that machine the code will upload a file to our server, while from our server perspective we will be downloading that file to our Kali Linux machine. So inside of the server, here we want to add an option else if the command and then first 8 characters, and you might be wondering why first 8 characters? Well, because download has 8 characters. And we're comparing if the command starts with download, then we're going to download a specific file. And to do that, we're going to use download_file function. This function will take the parameter of the file name, so we're going to type command and from the 9th character till the end. Of course, this function we're going to code right now, but just to clarify why I wrote it like this is because once again, if the command is something like this, download file.txt, we're comparing first 8 characters, if they are equal to download. If they are, that means we are downloading the file, and then we will paste this to this download file function, since we're going to strip first 9 characters off, which will be the download word and the empty space. Okay, now that we did this, let us code the download function up here. So we're going to code it below the reliable receive. Let us define it first, so define download_file. As we already know, this function takes one parameter, which is the file name. And this is going to be a little bit of a harder function to code, but let's give it a try. We're going to start like this. We're going to initiate a file object, and how we do that in Python, we simply specify the file object name and then we open it. But besides of opening it, we must specify the way we want to open it, whether we want to open it for reading or for writing. That is a second parameter to this open function. In this case, since we're going to download a file, we want to write the content that we receive from our backdoor to the file that we create on our Kali Linux machine. Therefore, inside of our server code, we want to write bytes. So what does this mean? Well, we're opening this file object to store the contents of the file that we want to download. That's why we're going to write that content. And this W stands for write, while this B stands for bytes. So we're essentially writing bytes to our file. Then another thing that we must add is the target.setTimeout. This is a cool function that we get from the socket library, and we're going to set the timeout to be 1 in this case. Why? Well, sometimes if we don't set the timeout, it might actually get stuck and not allow us to download the file. Of course, this timeout is something that at the end of this function we must remove, so it doesn't interfere with other commands and connections, but for this function we must set the timeout so our program doesn't crash. Great. Once we initiate a timeout, we're going to initiate a variable called chunk, and this chunk will be a small parts of data that we're going to receive multiple times. So we're going to type target.receive, and we're going to specify inside of the brackets amount of bytes that we want to receive. In this case, we're going to use 1024 bytes. So how are we going to keep receiving data until the file size is over? Well, we can just type while chunk. And this while chunk will simply run this while loop as long as there is something inside of the chunk variable. And if there is something inside of the chunk variable, we want to write that something to our file. And we do that using our file object that we called f and using the write function onto that object. So file.write, and we are writing the chunk inside of that file. Then after we write that, we're going to try to receive the chunk once again. So chunk equals target.receive. We're going to go with the 1024 bytes once again. And if we run into a timeout, so socket.timeout as error, we are going to simply break out of this while chunk loop, because that would mean that we reached the end of the file. And at the end, let's not forget to set the timeout to non-existent. So we can do that by specifying target.setTimeout to none. We're simply just removing this statement right here that we initiated at the beginning of the download file function. And the one last thing that we must do is anytime that we open a file object, once we are finished with that object, we must close it inside of our function. So I will just type f.close. Great. This is our download file function that we're going to run inside of the server code. Now let's see how we can create the correspondent function to this inside of the backdoor code. Remember, from here we are downloading a file, but from the backdoor we are uploading a file. So what we must do right here is inside of the shell function we must add an else if statement. So else if command, first 8 characters are equal to download. We're doing the same thing that we did in our server, just here we're going to call upload file onto the file name, so from the 9th character till the end. Since our backdoor is uploading a file, the function will be quite a lot easier to code, so let us go up here and below the connection function we can define upload file. This of course will take file name as the parameter, and only thing we need to do is open the file that we want to upload to the server. In this case, we're going to define the file name as the first parameter, just as we did inside of our download file in the server code. Just this time, we're going to read bytes from this file. Why? Well, from the backdoor, we're not writing or storing a file onto the system. We're simply just reading the contents of the file that the server wants to download, and we're going to send that content to our server program. So how can we do that in Python? Well, we can type as.send, and the thing that we're sending is file.read. This is the entire upload file function. But before we actually close off this video, we must also code the upload function. What if we want to upload a file to the target system from our Kali Linux machine? Well, it is pretty much the same thing. We just need to reverse these two functions, which are upload file and download file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this function, save this program, go to my server code, and I'm going to paste the upload file function right above the download file. Just here, I'm going to change the s.send into target.send. When will this function run? Well, it will run if the command starts with upload. So let's define it down here in the target communication, else if command and first 6 characters are equal to upload. Then we are calling the upload file function onto the command and from the 7th character till the end. Once again, from the 7th character, because after the 7th character starts the name of the file that we want to upload. Okay, great. And one more thing that we must do is now we must copy this download file function and add it to our backdoor code. Let's save this, go to our backdoor code. And since we already have the upload file function, right below it, we're going to add the download file function. But of course, we must change this target into S because target is not initiated inside of our backdoor code. Here as well. Inside of this statement as well we must change. And at the end, once we remove the timeout, we must also add S. Great. Now that we did all of this, our functions should run. Just before we close off this video, we must also add the upload option inside of our shell function. So let's just go down here below the download and type else if command first 6 characters are equal to upload. Then what we want to do is we don't want to upload a file, we want to download a file. And it is the same principle as with the previous function. Since if the server sends the upload command, it wants to send its own file to our backdoor. Therefore, from the backdoor perspective, we are downloading that file to the target system. And what we must specify is command from the 7th character till the end. And that would be about it. We coded the download and upload functions. Now, we're not going to test them inside of this video, but in the next video. We're also going to test our previous commands and see if our backdoor works on the target system, if our quit command works, if execution of the commands work, if we can change the directory, and at the end, we're going to see whether we can upload and download a file from that target machine. See you in the next video.